If you're looking for an exquisite little piece of intermediate music to learn on piano that's a little different from the normal stuff that we see posted on various social media places, then stay tuned, because today I've got a great tutorial for you on a piece called Intermezzo by Manuel Ponce. Are you sitting comfortably? Then let's begin. Hi, this is Tommy with Tommy's Piano Corner, the place for returning pianists or indeed anybody who loves piano to share tips and ideas of how to get the best from this great hobby. If it is your first trip here, then please do think about subscribing. You just need to hit the little icon in the bottom right hand corner of your screen now or at any time during this video, and it's all done for you. So the piece I'd like to introduce you to today is one that I first came across thanks to a recording by Lang Lang on YouTube. And I listened to it and I thought, wow, that is really a pretty piece of music, and it didn't sound massively difficult to be able to play either, so that would be good to learn. And I did a little research on the composer, and it's actually composed by a Mexican composer called Manuel Ponce, who died only recently, really, in 1948. So he composed lots and lots of stuff, even orchestral works and ensemble works and guitar works, but also a lot of stuff for piano. I found that this was a delightful piece of music to learn, and it's a beautiful piece of music just to enjoy playing. And it's also quite good for building technique around repeated chords and around voicing a melody in our left hand. Whilst technically I don't think it's massively difficult to learn, I think to get a good musical result isn't always as easy as you might think, as we'll see. If we first consider the structure of this piece, there's an introduction, which is 6 measures plus a pickup. There's a first theme with no real melody, which is 8 measures long, with of course a pickup. There's a second variation on that theme where now we have a melody in the left hand, which is another 8 measures. Then a third variation on that theme, plus a bridge, which altogether is 16 measures long, which then brings us back to the first theme for another 8 measures, almost note for note, but not quite. Then that second variation is repeated again with the melody in the left hand, and then there's an ending which is basically 9 measures long. So all in all, not masses of material to learn. What all sections have in common is repeated chords in the right hand. I'm calling them chords, so of course they're just pairs of notes, so more intervals really, I guess. But you've got seconds, thirds, fourth, fifths, sixth and sevenths to play here. And it's necessary, of course, to control these at a piano or a pianissimo level for the most part, which can present its own challenges. I think it's worthwhile deciding on our approach to these up front. Now, having smaller hands, I purposefully decided not to try to join them legato in my fingers. First, it certainly wouldn't always be possible to do this anyway, as there are a couple of places where there's a definite jump from one set to the next. And secondly, this will be a little stretchy for me, and I'm trying to keep closed hand positions wherever possible. Given that this is intended to be played anyway with the pedal, then I think this is perfectly fine. They need to be kept light, of course, and this gives rise to 2 main problems. First, I think it's essential that we try to play them together and not roll them. I don't know if you've noticed, but on many amateur recordings of, say, Clair de Lune, people don't pay enough attention to the simpler part at the beginning, and they don't keep the notes together. The same thing can all too easily happen here if we're not careful. We need to pay particular attention to ensuring the notes both sound together and are voiced consistently. Otherwise, for me, you get a sort of plinky-plonk effect, especially in the higher registers. The next problem is that of ghosting when you're playing these. And I've noticed this phenomenon elsewhere in my playing. When I know that my hand needs to move position, it seems to start moving before it's played all of the notes directly under it. So a useful practice technique I found was to use a rhythmic pattern that sometimes pauses before the jump to reinforce playing that second set of notes. I did work on this hand separately for a while, however I think I got more value when using hands together to keep the hands coordinated. I would also consider how you wish to pedal here as well. For example, I found that it's best to release some of the resonance towards the end of each section by lifting and lowering the pedal partway through that upward arpeggio in the left hand. Before we move on from talking about this basic pattern, we need to note that it does change very subtly in a couple of places. First, the notation's departed from twice, as you can see here. We can see there is now a separate voice written out in both places, so the notes with the upward stems. Therefore, we need to decide how to bring this out distinctly in our playing, given that Ponce has gone to the trouble of highlighting the notation for us. The other area where there's a change to this is in the little bridge section. Note how the pairs of notes are phrased. To me, this says that we are best choosing a fingering where we actually change fingers on the repeated notes, which we did not do elsewhere. Perhaps the most obvious difficulty, though, is managing to voice the melody in the left hand. This is made slightly more awkward by the grace notes of the bass that we need to catch in the pedal, therefore making legato sometimes a challenge. First, I think it pays to consider how you wish to shape it. As I mentioned in my video on the Bach Siloti B minor prelude, simply bringing it out is a sort of wasted opportunity. Giving it a shape makes it far more beautiful. And you may find it helpful to practice just the left hand here with the melody as you decide how you might want to shape it. Next, I found that here it pays to think carefully about the strategy you wish to use with respect to both pedal and finger legato. I'll explain what I found worked for me, however you might find you prefer to do differently, especially if you have larger hands perhaps. For many of these notes, I cannot maintain a finger legato and will need the pedal. However, pedaling as marked on the score breaks the line for my smaller hands. However, if we look carefully at the harmonies, it's actually possible to pedal differently here. For example, we can change the pedal partway through the bar such that the melody notes remain fully sustained. Another element to be careful of whilst working on the shaping of this left hand is the second voice in the left hand. As these are in the same overall register, then they can easily break the shape. The trick I think here is to try to keep them super soft so that they don't perturb what's going on elsewhere. And finally, I think we can also rely on a sort of illusion of legato if we're careful. By that, I mean if we shape the line properly and make the note at the top blend properly in tonal volume, if you like, with the note that precedes it, then a tiny break in the absolute legato is barely noticeable. If you're relatively new to voicing a melody in your left hand, then you might find it helpful to look at other pieces where you need to do this. Now, a nice easy example is Schumann's Merry Peasant, which provides a useful piece to practice concurrently with this, as it has both repeated chords in the right hand and a melody in the left. So two of the things that you need to master in this piece by Ponce as well. Perhaps the last complication then is the particular section that I've nicknamed the bridge. The notes themselves aren't massively difficult, however I did realise that when I was practising this one day that I had absolutely no idea what musical result I was aiming for. you'll see both Siloti and non-legato marked. Now, Siloti can mean detached, especially when used as notation for stringed instruments, but it can also mean with freedom. It also gets loud here, marked 40, against the other markings ranging from piano to triple piano. Therefore, how do we sort of incorporate this break from the general rhythm and pattern of the music around it? Do we try to blend it in and then out? Do we let it have an abrupt change? In Lang Lang's version, he sort of cheats by basically transposing the final B natural in the left hand 3 octaves down the piano. To me, it sounds like he uses pedal, perhaps partial pedal, but he certainly doesn't seem to play it in a detached and non-legato manner. My recommendation would be to work through what makes good musical sense to you. I found it very helpful to practice the final set of chords in a variety of different tempi and touches with varying amounts of legato, pedal and rubato, basically experimenting, so later on I'll be able to make a choice finally. This way of practicing makes it feel much more controlled. I still use the pedal, but do so in a way that by the time I get to the final B natural, that's the only note that's still left in the pedal. I'm sure you'll enjoy learning this little piece as much as I did. It's something that's exquisitely beautiful and also a little different. If you're not already, then please do subscribe to Tommy's Piano Corner. Don't forget to click that little bell icon so you're notified of new videos as and when they're released. I thank you very much for watching and look forward to seeing you soon.